Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 15 of Monorail Monday. Yeah, this is the third episode of the third season. As always, if you haven't seen any previous Monorail Mondays, check the link down below. We've got about 14 other episodes of Monorail Monday talking about my time working in monorails at Walt Disney World, as well as a little bit of time in Universal, and just how things work, what it's like to work there, what it's like to work in the theme park. Last episode we talked about cast member shenanigans. This time we're going to talk about guest shenanigans, and maybe not so much shenanigans as just like, WTF, guests, what are you doing? A lot of people don't realize sometimes some of the crazy stuff that guests do, and it can be very trying as a cast member. I see a lot of times people say, oh, I saw this cast member and they weren't that nice, and if I was a cast member, I'd be nice all the time. That's easily said, sitting at home going, I'd love to work at Disney's. But now when you're working there and you've been there quite a few years, you're working your fourth double shift or your fourth 10 to 12 hour shift in the middle of July, people shrieking in you, screaming at you, you're just trying to do your job. Crowd control during the parades can be just miserable with trying to ask politely for people to comply, and people just basically flipping you off, cussing you out, telling you, you're just some minimum wage flunky. I mean, people say a lot of stuff, and after that happens, 3, 4, 5, yeah, you're not always just going to smile and and do a 2-finger point and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it does end up getting to you a little bit. The first story, I'm working at the Magic Kingdom station in monorails, and I'm working the unload platform. We almost always had a person on the express side, a person on the lagoon side. So we had somebody loading on there, and then we usually had at least 1 or 2 people on unload. And they would just sort of make sure when the trains depart the station, after people have gotten off, that people stand clear of the trough. They're not getting close to the beam. Everybody wanted to try and peek into the trough. What does it look like in there? It looks just like it does outside the station there. Where that beam is, it looks like that, only there's a pit. It really doesn't look like anything. But people are always doing that. So just make sure people are heading towards the exit ramp, or answer any questions they might have, or help with a wheelchair. So on this particular occasion, most of the guests have headed down the exit ramp, heading into the Magic Kingdom, all excited to have fun. And I noticed this one woman and her kid are heading towards the console at the end of the Magic Kingdom station. This is the opposite side from the ramp. So they're walking towards the console. I'm thinking, oh, they must have a question for the lead or something like that. And I turn away and I'm just looking at the rest of the platform. I glance back, I don't see them anymore. And I thought, wait a second. Where'd they go? They're not hanging at the edge of the console talking to the lead. Where did they go? So I walk over towards the console. They're not in the console. I take another couple of steps to the far side of the console, and there's a little 2-foot gap between the edge of the console and the railing. So when I come around the corner of the console, there is this lady and her kid who's, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 or something like that. And he's peeing on the console cabinet. Yes, actually, he's got his pants down at his ankles and he's just peeing all over the console cabinet. And it's a little door at the back of the cabinet, and that was basically where we would stick our belongings, our backpacks or purses, our jug of water for the station. We kept all that stuff back there. This kid is basically peeing on the cabinet that holds all this stuff. So I said, oh, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't pee here. This is not a bathroom. This is our stuff. Our drinking water, our personal belongings are here. Why are you doing this? And she said, she kind of rolled her eyes at me and said, he had to go, so we're going here. And I said, there is a bathroom at the bottom of the ramp. right down there at the bottom of the ramp, there's a bathroom you can use. We really prefer you use that as opposed to using the bathroom on our personal belongings. And she didn't seem to care. She just kind of said, okay, let's go, little Joey. And they just kind of wandered off, and she just shrugged, and it's like, sorry, too bad for you. So that was pretty gross, pretty rude. And yet, people do this kind of stuff. They just decide, I gotta go right now, and that's where they're gonna go. We also had, if you wonder why the monorails smell, it's because people got sick on them, and hopefully somebody cleaned it up, but it might not get cleaned up immediately. It might take a few minutes for a custodian to bring some stuff to clean it. Dirty diapers. People left dirty diapers all the time, every day. Find somebody changed a diaper on the monorail between the Magic Kingdom and the Transportation Center, and then they just abandoned it. So the next story takes place on, I think it was a New Year's Eve, which, of course, the parks are about as crowded as they ever are. New Year's Eve is just a really, really busy time. So once you hit midnight and the park exit begins, everything, the buses, the ferry boats, the monorails, all getting hammered with guests exiting the park. So at the Magic Kingdom station, of course, the line comes down the exit ramp, and then there were a bunch of ropes that were set up at the bottom. It's just a zigzag of queues for people to help organize the line as they wait for the monorail to the transportation center. You have cast members down at the bottom just waving people with the wands and telling people, well, it's going to be about this much time from here. Just trying to keep things organized. And at some point after midnight, I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m., it's just absolute bedlam in this line. People waiting to get out. People are impatient. It's very crowded. Wall-to-wall people. At some point, somebody had a knife, cut the ropes, and basically the entire queue rope back and forth of the stanchions, they're all tied together. These queue ropes basically all fall in the entire queue area, just disintegrates, and then all of a sudden bedlam. Then every guest just decided, wow, I better rush ahead now. So everybody just charges, and it was absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. Everybody goes charging towards the ramp, figuring they're gonna like squeeze everybody else out and try and get ahead and not lose their place. It just went from this organized zigzag back and forth to just this mob attacking the bottom of the exit ramp and trying to squeeze in. It was just absolute chaos. Luckily, I was not at the bottom when that happened. I was not at the bottom of the ramp when that happened because I'd have just gone running. The CMs who were there, a couple friends of mine, they did step back. At that point, there's not much you can do except just sort of let the situation play out and then try and reorganize it momentarily. But I'll never forget that scene of just how all of a sudden it just looked like a riot was breaking out. Nobody was hurt, luckily. Nobody was hurt, and nobody ended up stabbing anybody with a knife. It wasn't, we've had that happen at the trams, people waiting in line for the trams. There has been a stabbing or two before, because people got impatient and didn't think other people should have cut them in line or something. So luckily nothing happened to anybody in that particular situation with the monorails, but it was just bizarre and unreal, surreal to see that line just all disintegrate and all those people just all of a sudden go crazy trying to make sure that they were pushing and getting in front of everybody else and didn't let other people pass them up for the monorail. They wanted out of that place bad. All right, so the third story of guest shenanigans, guest craziness that I'm going to talk to you about today. This takes place over at Epcot. And this is during an Epcot exit. So, of course, Illuminations has ended. A sea of guests is emerging from Epcot and they're coming up the ramp. and getting ready to board the monorail back to the transportation center. So it's just crowded. At the time, we only have a couple of Mark 6 trains on the system. The vast majority are still Mark 4s. And in a Mark 4 train, you had to fold up your stroller. No stroller fit on a Mark 4. It had to be folded up. Once we introduced the Mark 6s, where they had standing room, that was a huge hurdle for a lot of people. A lot of people did not understand standing. They didn't want to stand after they've been in the park and they've been standing waiting for a train all day. And they said, hey, I don't have to fold up my stroller anymore. So they didn't want to fold the strollers. So this was just sort of a triple header of trouble. So on this particular occasion, we have one of the few Mark 6s on this line pull into the station. And we're encouraging everybody to hop on the train. And this one particular couple, they didn't want to stand. And then we said, you got to fold up your stroller. And they said, no, we're not folding the stroller. We're not going to do that. At the time, that was one of our major safety issues, was strollers must be folded. You cannot let the train leave with a stroller unfolded. Eventually, they gave up on that, and they just kind of let people wheel the stroller. You try to encourage them to close it up because it makes more room for everybody else, but ultimately, that was a battle that had to be let go. But in the early days of the Mark 6 trains, we were doing that. We were enforcing that. You must have your stroller folded up. So we told this one particular couple that they really should fold their stroller before the train comes in because we're going to load the train very quickly and dispatch it. And they just kept glaring at us and complaining, so we're not doing that, and we don't have to listen to you. And as soon as the train comes in, pull the gate back a little bit, and of course the people who are at the segment where the gate first pulls away, those people start getting on first. So by the time the gate is pulled all the way back, the folks with a stroller here, they've already been passed by all these other people in their gate. So now they're starting to figure out, oh geez, we're not going to get on. And they start folding their stroller up, and they do finally squeeze onto the train, but they're yelling at me and yelling at a friend of mine. So finally they get on, the doors close, and off goes the monorail. It just seemed like, okay, well, that kind of was annoying, but okay, they're gone. Until the next day. I get called into the office along with my fellow cast member who was loading the back half of the train, and the manager asked me to talk about this incident with these folks in the stroller, and I said, I know exactly who you're talking about. I explained what happened, and this woman was pregnant. She had a kid, she was pregnant, and the supervisor said that this gentleman said that my fellow cast member and I pushed his pregnant wife onto the monorail and pushed him onto the monorail and kicked the stroller in at them as they departed the station. And I started laughing, and I said, that's not what happened at all. No. I said, are you serious? Do you think I would push a pregnant woman and her husband onto the monorail and then kick the stroller in after them? I said, come on, that's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I said, they were cussing at us is what happened. And they said that, we explained that they waited another train thinking they were going to get on and not have to stand, and they wouldn't have to hold their stroller. And when they did, they got mad and they started cussing at us. So the supervisor said, well, I'm going to have to talk to them some more. I don't think you pushed them. I don't think you cussed at them, but I have to talk to them a little bit more and figure out what's going on. Fast forward another day, and the same supervisor pulls me aside and said, look, we're not pursuing this any longer. He said, I think the guy is having a bad Vietnam flashback because his story has changed now and it's gotten even worse. You kicked his pregnant wife and kicked him and kicked the stroller, and you cussed at them on the way out of the station. And he said, it's clear that they're just making stuff up and trying to get some free things or some compensation or whatever. But he said, I don't buy for a second that you guys were hitting and kicking the pregnant woman and the other guy getting on the train. But this kind of thing where people would make stuff up happens all the time. Half of the complaints I read online these days with cast in regards to cast members, this cast member did or did not do this, take with a very fine grain of salt. Because a lot of people know they can get stuff if they make up stories, or they will embellish their stories. So much embellishing going on with people's stories. I waited in line for 10 minutes becomes I waited in line for 45 minutes and people were saying stuff to me. People really tend to add on to their stories to try and get more free stuff. Disney actually has a list. They have a database of people who are problem guests, who repeatedly have complaints, repeatedly asking for stuff. So they have a list of these people who are doing this stuff all the time so that they can dismiss their stories or dismiss their complaints. You know, this guy is, every time he comes here, he's unhappy and miserable and needs something free. Problem that stinks for cast members is a lot of times Disney bends over backwards and gives these people free things anyway just to make them go away. Even if they know they're on the list and they know they're a chronic and they know that their story is full of BS, a lot of times they give them free stuff just to go away and just so they're quiet. So that's an unfortunate thing as your cast member, and this is again getting back to the I would be nice to everybody all the time, is a lot of times you're supporting a safety rule or something like that, or you've done nothing wrong, and then people who are doing bad things are getting rewarded. It just can drive you crazy. But anyway, that's 3 stories of just sort of guest nuttiness that happened. There's a million more stories, but I thought we'd just go with a couple right there. Let me know, have you seen any guest craziness? Post your comment. Let us know what kind of weird, crazy stuff you've seen, or did you commit some guest craziness? Confess below. So thanks for commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing, telling your friends. Another episode of Monorail Monday ahead next week. Remember, kids, have a good time all the time.